pretty sure we're Gucci. Just want to make sure, of course, that all my stuff is good here. So I might even change some of the things here. So it's all good. We're gonna go ahead and hop into it. So let's see. Channel. Yeah. Wonderful. All right. Yo, yo, yo. What is going on, my beautiful brothers and sisters, fellow radiators of love? My name is Jamal Pope, aka J Phoenix, and welcome to this week's installment of Cosmic Convergence. We got a lot to talk about this week, y'all. When I was looking at the transits for the week and taking my notes on them, wow. We got a lot of stuff that's going to happen this week. And I don't know, this video might end up being a little bit longer than the usual one, but we'll see. We will see. I appreciate you all joining me for this Cosmic Convergence. I'm going to be covering June 5th through the 11th. And of course, like I said, we have a lot of interesting stuff happening this week, including a new moon in Gemini, and that's going to be happening on Thursday. We have the Sun and Venus that are going to have this long extended conjunction here in Gemini as well, as they both start to come into a square with Saturn. That square with Saturn, of course, is going to really come really big on Sunday. In fact, there's a lot of stuff happening on Sunday, and it's kind of interesting too. I've noticed, this year there was like a month-long period where all the major transits were happening on Saturday in particularly, and then a couple on Sunday, and then there were moments where it was mainly happening during the week. This is sort of like a tale of 2 weeks from the 5th to the 11th. We're going to have the new moon in Gemini, right, on Thursday. Then we have a couple days, and then Sunday things pop off. There is so much happening on Sunday. I'll just read to you all what's happening on Sunday, and then of course I'll show you guys the chart so it's a little bit more visual. But on Sunday, Mars is going to enter into Taurus. The moon's going to square Chiron. The moon is going to sextile Uranus. The sun is going to square Saturn. The moon is going to enter into Leo and create a fixed T-square with Mars and Pluto. Mercury is going to sextile the North Node and trine the South Node, and then the moon is going to sextile Jupiter. That's all on Sunday. That's all on Sunday. A lot of astrologers are probably going to be talking about the new moon in Gemini, which is nice, but it doesn't hold a candle in energy and importance to what's going to be coming on Sunday. So, just figured I'd at least just list off to you the sheer number of transits that are happening on Sunday, and that's usually a day where people, they're with their family, they're taking care of those things that they can't get done during the week, and usually the weekend is where the news goes to die. Usually the weekend is a little bit more chill because a lot of these things don't really happen on the weekend. You don't really hear too much, but this weekend, this Sunday, it's going to be on and popping. It really is. So, in any event, of course, I haven't changed the image yet, but let me go ahead and actually change the image to the one that it is for this week. So now, if you saw the thumbnail already, you would think that this is like a depressing week. Are your desires your own? This was an interesting week as far as trying to figure out the image for it, because I'm looking at the transits, like I said, for the week, and I'm like, holy shit, there is so much that's happening this week. Of course, I will talk about that new moon in Gemini, but it's really that Sunday and the build up to that day, and then the aftermath of it. And I'll just show you, I'll show a couple of images, right? Let's see if I can find another image to kind of show you kind of where my thought process was, because there's different things I was thinking about. So I will show you, let's see if I could. So here's one image that I was thinking about doing for it. It shows an individual that is laying in some type of weird place, maybe like a bunker, maybe some sort of like inner chamber of a spaceship or something like that. And, they have all these weird things around here. They have like the virtual reality goggles on, and they're just probably in their own world. And, looking at the transits for this week, I'm like, well, this could be definitely indicative of, you know, having the wool kind of pulled over our eyes in a sense and maybe falling for certain delusions. And we have to kind of ask ourselves, are our desires our own? But, this image didn't really convey exactly what I wanted and stuff. Like, there was an element to this. It does give it kind of like that dystopian, futuristic sci-fi kind of feel to it, but that wasn't exact. Like, it was kind of close to what I wanted, but I was like, what else can I do? So then I found, let me see if I can pull it up for you guys. I like showing y'all like my thought process and stuff. Let's see. Then I have this one. Now, this one's kind of an interesting one because it kind of takes that same concept, if you will. It takes that same concept, if you will, but it throws the person into a room that is completely filthy, right? Completely filthy. And this can definitely speak to how we can ignore things that have built up over time, especially with that new moon in Gemini too. This is about a refreshing of the mind, and the room itself can be a representation of your mind or like the clutter, but there's like this sort of desire to want to escape it, and it just continues to pile up and pile up and pile up. This also can be a representation of just simply humans ignoring a lot of their problems, but when they put on these virtual reality goggles, they can go wherever they want to go to, and they just, like I said, you ignore all of the different problems around you and stuff, right? But ultimately, I went with this. I have this person who's sitting in a chair, and there's various beings and sprites kind of dancing around him. The reason why I chose this one is because even though this does have a bit of a dark energy to it, there's an element here where there's still opportunity for him to take his power back. The sprites and the dancing spirits around him can be representations of our desires. They can be representations of other people's desires for our own life. And whether or not we are going to succumb to those desires, which is why I asked the question, are your desires your own? And, with a lot of this energy that's building up, and especially, like I said, on Sunday, when we get to the fixed energies and this fixed T-square that we're going to see, is definitely... And a lot of this also has to do with Neptune. It has to do with Neptune, it has to do with Saturn and Pisces. I feel like now that we are in this Gemini season, we had all the energy in Taurus, we had all this energy in Gemini now, that we have somehow forgotten about Neptune. We have somehow forgotten about Saturn. We are going to be reminded this week about Neptune. We are going to be reminded of Saturn this week, especially Saturn. Especially Saturn we're going to be reminded of. And we have to ask ourselves, am I being controlled by others? Am I being controlled? Are my desires even my own? Or, the different things that I want, are they actually really good for me? Or are they just trying to take me into a certain realm, a certain place, a certain mindset? This is going to be a week about addressing our overall mindset, our attitude, our approach to life when it comes to these sort of things. It's going to address all of that. And there are going to be these different influences, especially mental, that we have to really ask ourselves, is this really me? Is this reflection me? You got to remember that Gemini is the twins. It's a mirror. So are these desires mine? Are these thoughts mine? Or am I following someone else's thought form or thought wave? Am I falling into someone else's ideology that actually isn't authentic to who I really am? But am I doing it maybe so I can feel accepted by others? There's going to be questions of feeling like we can be accepted by others, embraced by others as well. That's going to be coming up this week. So these are just things to really consider. I don't think it'll be a bad week, whatever like that. I don't think that you have to be like this individual down at the dumps, but I think there's going to be this element where we may notice throughout the week different moments where we have to really ask ourselves, is this energy mine or is this energy someone else's? Is this ideology mine or is this ideology someone else's? Right? Is this desire mine or does this desire belong to somebody else? Why have I adopted this desire as my own if it's not really authentic to who I am and my energy and what I'm here to do, what I'm here to bring, what I'm here to accomplish, if you will? That is really, in many ways, what this week is all about. So, I know the image is pretty intense. I think it's actually kind of cool. Even the one that's like mainly above him with his teeth showing, and he's like, I mean, he's like a little kid though. You know, looks like a little kid. You know, and it's like I said, these sprites, they can be representative of multiple things. These could be other people's desires in your life, for your life, but these can be your own desires. These can be even maybe just different like trapped thought patterns or trapped emotions that you haven't processed yet, and now they're sort of taking a life of their own, and now they're sort of controlling you as if, you know, like almost like you're a puppet, if you will. Because that was another thing when I was trying to think of the image for this week. I was like, you know, I was getting this vision of someone who's essentially being controlled, you know, and, you know, are you going to allow these sprites in your life to control you, these thoughts, these emotions? Are you going to allow them to control you? Are you going to address them, heal them, maybe get these different aspects of yourself and maybe find peace with them so they can move on, and that will kind of get you out of the mud, that can kind of get you unstuck, if you will. I think this is a great week for realizing how we can get unstuck in our lives, right? That we don't have to fall victim to these thoughts and these emotions that may have just built up and calloused over time. This can be a week where we can actually start to loosen the bond to some of these things that have held us back, so we can move forward in more powerful, co-creative ways and not feel like we are just bonded to our current situation or that it's just all bad. And probably it will give us just a new insight into that, hey, maybe it's not as bad as I think it is. But because you think it is bad, it's going to be bad. But it's probably not as bad as you think it's going to be. Or it is. So, let's go ahead, of course, and hop into the charts. Let's see. Boom. So, hope that first little part helped with the whole channeling part and just kind of going over the week itself and what we have coming up. So, we're going to, of course, go day by day as we usually do. What's up, Willow? How you doing? Thanks for joining. Appreciate y'all's patience and stuff too. I know I was a little late getting on. I got a new phone and I'm trying to activate it and it's been a pain. Still not fully activated, but I think I got it fixed. So after this, I should be good to go. But we'll see. We will see. So now, of course, last week I already did cover the Tuesday, but at the time of me making this, I do actually have the moon. We actually do have the moon on Uranus at 24 degrees. Kind of interesting, especially considering the fact that this is actually opposed my sun, and Pallas Athena right now is actually on my sun. It's the act at 24 degrees, so I'm kind of feeling this energy pretty intently. Which is why I know that this particular transit video is it's going to be one that you do not want to miss. This one, this is very important, and like I said, this is hitting my sun right now, so it's almost sort of like, it almost sort of feels like, even though a new moon is building up for the world, you know, for the collective, for me, it's like I'm getting like a full moon with the moon opposing my sun right now, and it's with Uranus, so that's a lot, you know what I'm saying? So Like, this is going to be an interesting video. I'm going to be channeling quite a bit in this one, and especially with Pallas on my sun. And Athena is one of my principal guides, so it's where I have a connection to Athena, if you will. So, yeah. In any event, we have this moon in Taurus. It is within 30 degrees of the sun, so it is in its dark moon phase. And typically, when the moon is in its dark moon phase, it brings about this sort of darker energy, if you will. It's like right before we get like that newer, fresh energy. So it's almost like this is that moment where it's it's like pretty ripe, almost like the energies could almost be like too ripe, almost like too sweet, so the energy can be a little bit more intense. It's not, we're looking for that sweet spot with the new moon, but when it's right before it, it's sort of, like I said, it almost could be too ripe, if you will. It can almost be too, or right, we may jump the gun too, right? We may jump the gun with this one. We may, you know, whenever the moon is in the balsamic phase of that last 30 degrees for the sun, this is when our decision making, especially from an emotional standpoint, it's a little bit more subject for going off the rails a little bit, or we may be a little bit more a little bit more chaotic with our emotions, whatever like that and stuff. um it can be a time where, like I said, generally within that 30 degrees, because you got to think now the moon is in the 12th house to the sun. So it brings up 12th house energy. So it brings up matters of spirit. It brings up matters of prisms, drugs. It brings up all these different, it brings up it brings up mutable water energy. So everyone's emotions flow really quickly whenever the moon is in either the natural 12th house, Pisces, or whether it's within 30 degrees of the sun. So everyone's emotions flow really, really quickly. Escapism kind of comes up now. Now, what's interesting with this one is that this moon is in Taurus. So you have mutable water, right? One of the most flowing of the energies. And you have physical earth and Taurus with fixed earth, one of the most rigid. So this is an interesting moment because it's kind of like trying to take water and trying to erode away a rock, if you will, and that takes time. Now with Uranus here, Uranus is interesting because Uranus is a bit of a wild card. It does provide this sort of quantum energy, and it also provides a sort of time skip energy. So what's interesting about this particular conjunction here in Taurus is that, first of all, the moon is exalted in Taurus, so it likes to be here. Uranus doesn't want to be here, much rather be in Scorpio, right? And now it's like we have this moon. This could be a moment where I feel like today, if you're trying to erode away something, like that's what I'm getting. I'm getting this image of like water trying to erode away some rocks, and it takes a while for it to smooth it out. With Uranus, it can kind of speed it up, if you will. There's a potential for it to kind of like speed up. So this can mean like, especially I think when it comes to more Taurus like things, when it comes to like money, when it comes to finances, when it comes to self-worth, value, projects, physical material like things, there's an opportunity here for there to be sort of like a speed up in the development of these different things with the moon here with Uranus. So it's kind of provides like an interesting energy. But like I said, because it's within that 30 degrees of the sun, it does bring about a pretty interesting element though too. It brings about this much more etheric, a little bit more like harder to grasp kind of energy, but yet it's in Taurus. So I think it's like the things that we're kind of looking for today, they can be physical, but I think it's the way that maybe we sometimes approach them, or a way that we appreciate them. We have to kind of look at it more in a broader sense, because that's what Pisces is wanting to do here, being within 30 degrees of the sun, and especially when the moon conjuncts Jupiter, right? Because the moon will be conjuncting Jupiter here shortly. So that's kind of the interesting thing about this. I think this moon in Taurus was giving us an opportunity to ground, but because all this energy has shifted into Gemini, and there's so much focus in Gemini world and in the mind and everything like that, this moon in Taurus, wasn't as grounded as some of the other moons in Taurus that we've had when Jupiter was there, when Mercury was there, when the Sun was there, when Venus was there. This is a different kind of a moon, but I think it can help us to kind of realize a little bit more of the things that we do appreciate. You know what I mean? So before we were kind of appreciating things in a much more kind of, I guess, obvious physical way. Now with Gemini, it's like we're kind of coming up more with like the facts and the why we appreciate these sort of things, right? So now now as we move this forward, of course, and we move into Wednesday, we're going to see this moon here in Taurus, of course, and it's going to shift into Gemini early in the morning. 5:20ish, maybe a little bit earlier, like pretty much like 5 a.m. We're going to see this moon shift into Gemini. As soon as the moon shifts into Gemini, of course, it's going to meet up with Jupiter, and it's also going to make a trine over to Pluto in Aquarius, right? So this is going to be an interesting day. We have this moon here. I think Wednesday can be a pretty positive day overall. The moon does meet up with Jupiter, which Jupiter, we have to remember, is in its detriment, right? It is in its detriment in Gemini, right? It's not used to being in the field and actually talking to people, which is what Jupiter and Gemini, that's what Gemini is. It's talking to people and getting the facts and the thoughts and the ideas of the people. Jupiter much rather be up in Sagittarius in the church studying away from the people, like away from all that sort of stuff, trying to gain these bigger, like these deeper senses or these grander senses of knowledge and channel the gods and all. The Jupiter much rather be over there. It's a lot bigger, it's a lot more expansive, and that's where Jupiter much rather be, right? Jupiter is amongst the common folk here in Gemini, and Jupiter is like Jupiter's really feeling like a fish out of water. Jupiter's really feeling like a fish out of water. Now, with this moon here, that's going to meet up with Jupiter, and it's going to meet up with Mercury here on Wednesday. It's going to, of course, amplify these energies, and this is after it does trine over to Pluto. There's definitely this element here where it's like, this is all about connection. It's all about connecting to people, and whether or not we can break outside of our own comfort zones. Jupiter in Gemini is going to be all about whether or not we can expand outside our comfort zones. And the moon is all about comfort. It rules Cancer, right? This also is about, with Mercury here, in the mind of what we can expand, who we can connect with, who we can communicate with. This and this trine over to Pluto, it's giving us this sort of precursor energy, this sort of peering into what the age of Aquarius is going to be all about. Some say we are in the age of Aquarius. I don't know if there's like an exact date when the age of Aquarius, but we pretty much are in like the precursor, pre-season of the age of Aquarius, if you will, right? Now, I don't think we're quite there yet. I think Pluto starts to go back into Capricorn and then come in fully into Aquarius for us to really be in it, but we pretty much are there. So this is a sort of transit that's going to sort of give us this sort of peer into what the age of Aquarius is all about. Like I said, Jupiter in Gemini feels like a fish out of water. This is when the CEO, even though generally the CEO is Saturn, but this is when the CEO of the company goes and works at one of the stores as like the most basic level employee. And then they get to see the day-to-day reality of that individual. And they get to understand that while they might have their challenges on their level, because maybe they're dealing with, meeting with different business partners and maybe like different conglomerates, and whether or not they're going to merge with different companies, and probably are fending off people trying to buy their company out, and they're moving big sums of money around. But on the smaller scale, the thing that runs the day-to-day, those little units that build up to the whole, that's what Mercury is all about. And now Jupiter's having to learn that lesson here. With the moon here, we're going to feel more into this energy. We're going to feel more into Jupiter's, nervousness a little bit in Gemini. It's going to feel more into Mercury. Ha ha ha, I told you so. Like, because that's what Mercury's doing. We're going to be real what Mercury is doing right now. Mercury right now is laughing at Jupiter because it's going to be like, it's not so easy, isn't it? It's not so easy, isn't it? It's not so easy out here on the streets. Being the man on the streets. I've been calling Mercury like a reporter. And Jupiter is like the head of the freaking newspaper, but like probably like way, way up above. They just want the scoops. They just want the big picture. They just want the big story. They want the thing that's going to be exciting and, kind of glamorize it. And like, all right, you do this thing, you do that thing, you do this thing, and we're going to blow this thing up. Mercury is about the actual details and the facts and the individual stories and connecting with those individuals, the people that they interview and stuff. Now Jupiter is having to do that. And Jupiter doesn't like to do that. Because now Jupiter, you got to think, Jupiter has all of this preconceived knowledge, all this knowledge that they bring to the table. And Jupiter and Gemini can come off as a bit standoffish, a bit of a know-it-all. So I'm gonna call y'all Sagittarius out. I love y'all Sag. I have Sag energy, right? I'm a Sag rising. I have Mercury in Sag, right, in the first house, and I'm a progressed Sun Sag. You're a bit of a know-it-all. Yeah, Sagittarius knows everything, right? But with Jupiter and Gemini, it's gonna be about new information, new facts, new knowledge, new data is going to be coming up here. So what do we do with all this information, this new data that's going to be coming up? What are we going to do with it? That's an interesting thing. And we got to remember that all of this Gemini energy is now in square to the Pisces energy. So Wednesday's going to be a day, like I said, where we're going to be feeling more into this. And like I said, with the trine over to Pluto, it's nice, it's harmonious. I think the challenge here is whether or not we can adapt to the new world that is being created, the new world that we are all co-creating, and whether or not we are going to have some level of personal responsibility, because we're all creating that world. So, we might as well have some level of personal responsibility and personal integrity in how we want to see this shaped. Otherwise, other people will do it for us. Are your desires your own? Or are you living out someone else's life? So that's the thing about this. So we'll see as the day continues. This moon is going to continue throughout Gemini. It's going to conjunct Mercury. By the end of the day, we'll see it conjunct the fixed star Aldebaran. This may even some people, depending upon if they have any planets near Aldebaran, they may feel like they get some sort of message from Spirit, message from God. Aldebaran, that's Archangel Michael. So they may feel like they get some sort of message from the angels, if you will, with this moon here, especially with Mercury getting closer to Aldebaran as well. But we can see that this new moon is really building up, and we are almost at the new moon in Gemini. Not quite yet on Wednesday, but almost there. I think Wednesday is going to be a sneaky, difficult day. I don't think it's necessarily going to be too bad, but I think it's going to be a day where you're really going to come, face to face with a lot of the things that may make you uncomfortable. And you having to learn how to go outside your comfort zone a little bit and how to, move about in this new world where, like I said, Pluto will go back into Capricorn, but it will come back into Aquarius. But we also have to deal with Jupiter and Gemini for the next year, right? Throughout all this, and this is a bit of a transitioning year. This is a year where we're having to adapt and evolve. Gemini is all about adapting, right? So that's the thing about this. We have all this energy in Gemini. So we are all a lot more mercurial right now. We are thinking a lot more, and depending upon, your relationship with your thoughts and with your mind, people's minds are probably doing this. Anxiety is going to be going up over the next week or so. And with the new moon, it can help to kind of settle things out for sure. But I'm just saying, if you feel like your thoughts are kind of all over the place, if you're feeling restless, if you're not really getting much sleep, that's all this Gemini energy, and especially with it squaring over to all of this Pisces energy with Neptune and Saturn. So of course, there's going to be restlessness right now. There's going to be some restlessness right now. And if you don't know how to navigate these mental spheres, then it can be difficult. Because people are going to want to, escape and try to run away from their thoughts. But, like I said, it's these sprites, these beings, there's an attachment, the energy is attached to you, if you will. You can't just get rid of them. You actually have to confront them. And you actually have to talk to them. And you actually have to listen. And you actually have to transmute and transform and adapt and go through the metamorphosis. Because that's the only way that you're going to be able to get through these kind of moments. And I promise you, if you do the work now, it's going to make it a lot easier come the second half of this year when shit really hits the fan. Because shit hasn't even hit the fan yet. We're just being prepared for the shit to hit the fan. But it hasn't even hit the fan yet. So this is an opportunity that's being afforded to us by the universe, by God, to step more into this power, if you will, so we can develop a better relationship with ourselves primarily, and therefore the world around us, especially with our thoughts. Venus, the planet of relationships, is in Gemini. And yes, Gemini is the twins, and it's about mirroring, but it's also about, what is your relationship with your own mind, your own thoughts, your own ideas, your own curiosity, your own inner child, if you will. What is your relationship with that? How does it look? And these are the things that we have to consider, right? So we move into Thursday. And of course, we get to that new moon here at 16 degrees of Gemini. And it's going to, of course, be with Venus as well. So this is a very powerful moment here. These three energies, the two luminaries and Venus coming together at 16 degrees. And even though it's not exact, this new moon is in square to Saturn that we have to consider. So that's the thing, Venus and the sun are squaring Saturn. So there's a bit of pressure when it comes from that angle right now. And this new moon, I want to read to you all too the Sabian symbol for this degree, because I thought it was actually kind of interesting. Let's see. Gemini 16. And honestly, whenever I see a build-up, especially if there's another planet involved, I definitely like to look into what is going on here. All right, so let's see if I can adjust that, and then cool, awesome. So here we go. The head of a robust youth changes into that of a mature thinker. This symbol shows how at times in our life we seem to or need to grow up and mature. We realize that there is only so much that one can do with youthful force. This symbol shows that it is time to use mature thinking, using your intellect and intuition and being able to take in consequences and responsibilities of one's actions. I literally just said that earlier. Allowing mature wisdom to come through, there can be a feeling of one's mindset changing and growing. Responsibilities are taken on board, and it's time to stop tearing around and to be more serious about life and its ramifications. Going from reacting with the lower emotional nature to thinking with the higher mind. Pondering, thinking things through, finding answers, a state of stillness, forever young. Suddenly becoming old and losing innocence and energy or clinging to the illusions of childhood, hormones taking over and dictating behavior, stayed thinking. We have to find a way to maintain our curiosity in the world, but we also can't just remain childish all the time, 24/7. And we can't just hide behind hormones. We can't just hide behind emotions. We can't hide behind all these different things that we've been hiding behind. And I think we all do this to a certain degree. But there is a level of responsibility that needs to be had now by humanity, and I think it all starts with the individual. This even talks about that. We have to be able to take in the consequences and responsibilities of our actions, be them positive or negative. We have to allow this mature wisdom to come through. And I think we all can feel that our mindsets are changing. You know, it's interesting too. Clinging to the illusions of childhood is an interesting one. Now, I am a big nerd, okay? Right? Like I watch anime. I have a freaking Pokeball here, right? Like so, you know what I mean? Am I just going to give all this stuff up? No. I'm not going to just stop liking this stuff. I think what this is really more so speaking to with the illusions of childhood is the fact that when you were a child, a lot of times, I mean, and it really depends upon your upbringing, so I don't want to just paint like a broad stroke, but a lot of times things were taken care of for you. They were handled for you. You messed up. Yeah, you had some responsibilities and you had some repercussions and you had to deal with some consequences, but a lot of times things are taken care of for you because it's also chalked up to, oh, well, you're young, you know. And I think we as humanity are kind of doing this collectively where it's like, this is where some of the channeling is coming in. I think a lot of the other beings and our brothers and sisters and other parts of the galaxy and the universe that have been watching us and kind of letting us do our thing, they're going to start to get a little bit more involved because we have been childish as a species for far too long. And they're going to come in, it's like, yo, y'all really got to like get on your shit. Y'all got to handle y'all shit because what y'all are doing is starting to have other ramifications in other parts of the galaxy. You gotta understand that you guys have an impact. You guys have an energetic vibration, an energetic impact. And we have been just acting like spoiled brats in this galaxy for far too long. I'm just gonna be real. And that's the thing. We as humanity have to mature. We have to grow up. And this is going to be a week that, really starts to bring that forward. And it all starts with the individual. But that's where we are as humanity. We have to grow up. We have to mature. We have to accept the consequences of our actions, and we have to, each of us, start to stand more in integrity and be more responsible. I know that sucks. I know that sounds gross, but we have to do it because we can't not think that our impact doesn't have some sort of vibrational impact on our celestial community. They've been watching us and just letting us kind of do our thing for a while, but we've done a lot. It's time for us to grow up, and it's starting to become much more and more and more noticed, and that's the thing that we have to realize here. It's like now that these things are becoming much more and more noticed, it's time to, fix our shit, if you will. It's time for us to, all right, we got to get our shit together as humanity. We really do, So I think this is like, and this is sort of reminiscent of like that person that never grows up. It's different from liking different things from your childhood. Like I said, I still like Pokemon. I still like Harry Potter, whatever. But it'd be one thing if I liked those things and I didn't have a job and I was a bum and I always tried to run to my parents for help for every little thing and, I didn't take any type of personal responsibility and I just was pretty much like a man child. And that's the thing. We have a lot of men. We have a lot of man child. We have a lot of female childs out here. We have a lot of adult children out here that don't want to grow up, that don't want to take any kind of responsibility for their lives, and they just push out the responsibility for someone else to handle instead of dealing with themselves. But that shit builds up. It doesn't go away. It's not going away, right? Like, it's not going away, y'all. Just because you put on the headset and you don't see it and you can escape into a world, it doesn't mean that it's going away. It doesn't mean that's going away. Right? We have to deal with these things. We have to deal with our attitude, our mindset, our desires. we have to confront these things now, because it is starting to get to a point where the kettle was boiling, right? And there's like almost no water left. So now the kettle could just be burning, and if we are not careful, the whole fucking house will burn down. Because there's not even any water left. And especially with this new moon, you gotta think too. Hold on, let me get back to the especially with this new moon that is involving the sun and Venus. Especially with Venus here, because Venus, that's the thing about Venus too, right? Venus, yeah, desires is typically ruled by Scorpio, right? Why does Venus not like to be in Scorpio? Well, it's because if we take our desires too far, if we push the extreme on our desires too far, it becomes toxic. Whether that's a relationship, a physical object, it can get too far, right? If we push it too far to the extremes that Scorpio does, and we push the boundaries, and it can become very, very, very toxic, right? So with the sun and Venus, there's an element here where a lot of energy is being burned off. That's the thing. Whenever the sun and Venus come together, when the sun ever comes together with really any planet, it kind of purifies that energy. Venus is already a super hot planet, right? It has a runaway greenhouse gas effect, or at least that's what they tell us, right? I don't know if that's actually true or not, right? But that's what they tell us, whether or not you want to believe it or not, whether you believe it's a natural physical planet, whether you believe that's just a body of water, whatever. But it has this runaway gas house effect, right? And it's already super hot. So when the sun comes up, and it just even incinerates even more away. And remember, Venus in Gemini is very, very flirty, not very super committal, right? And very much so, especially leading the pack, wants the shiny thing. It wants the shiny relationship. It wants the shiny object. But the sun is burning away in many ways the image, and especially once Venus squares over to Saturn, it's going to call up whether or not that shiny thing is really actually shiny, or whether or not it was a mirage, whether or not it's fool's gold. Or, the positive, maybe it's something that you really do enjoy, something that you really do value, but maybe you've been told by other people that you shouldn't. See, it goes both ways. So I think with this new moon, this is a new moon of maturation, where we can still be curious, we can still learn, we can still bring some of that youthful energy, because we don't want to go to the full extreme and just be like, Scrooge and just, get off my lawn. Like, you don't want to take it to the full extreme where it's just like, there's like no fun, there's no play, there's no light energy, there's none of that energy to it, where it's just like stuck and it's old and it's just and it's just not moving. Like, and you can tell, man, like this is such an interesting thing too. Like, 32 years old, right? So there's a lot of people that have been born after me. There's been a lot of people that have been born before me that are currently alive right now. I have met people that have a youthful spirit that are in their 60s, 70s, 80s, and I met people that have a very old, that have an older, more like just almost ready to go spirit in their 60s, 70s, 80s. You can kind of tell the difference in the way that they talk, the way that they move, their attitudes. Maybe they're a little bit more active and stuff. And that seems like it's the key, especially as you age. It seems like the key is to not stop moving and to still maintain that curiosity. There's still a level of maturation. They're not, adult children, if you will. They're not just stuck in their childhood. They understand that there are some limitations. It's like, but then again, some of them are pushing the boundaries. I saw like a video the other day of like, some like a gymnast. I think they were like in their 70s or their 80s, and they were absolutely killing it. They probably can't do everything they did as a young gymnast, but they probably did like 75% of it. So like that's the thing that we have to like realize here. You know what I mean? So I think we as humanity have to realize that some of the things that we did in our youth, we can't quite do it that way anymore. We have to upgrade it and update it. We can do some of that stuff, but we have to do it in a newer, fresh way and appreciate the development to this point as humanity. But a lot of, like I said, a lot of this is being burned away. Now, what it means in your personal life, because like I said, this is dealing with Venus. This can be dealing with your relationships. So it could be romantic. It could be more platonic. It could be friends. It could be with family members too. It could be with your mom because the moon is here. It could be with your children. So there's a lot of, you have to just kind of take stock and look at your relationships. So this is an interesting one because I do feel like with this kind of aspect, especially with Venus here, I think a lot of new relationships are going to start around this new moon. Now, whether or not they actually work out, I think is going to be determined upon that square to that Saturn. Because whether or not you are falling for something that looks shiny but is not actually shiny, you know, or it's going to be sort of like I think a lot of the other part here is that people may fall in love with the potential of something. Maybe they fall in love with the potential of somebody instead of that actual thing. So, Gemini is like the mirror, but maybe they project a sort of this image of what they think it should look like into that person, and then they have like this preconceived notion, but then what that person or that situation lives up to the reflection that you have in your own mind that you projected onto them of what you think that they should be. What if they never live up to that? We have to do our best to embrace and accept things as they are. And I think a lot of times it happens that we fall in love with the potential of somebody, the potential of something. But the actual thing itself, it's a whole nother thing. So that's what I'm saying. Like, I feel like relationships that start around this time, I don't know if they're going to work. I'm just being honest because I think unless you are very, very self aware and you are willing to put in the work, I think it could evolve to something that's very beautiful. But if you're not prepared to work on it and you're not prepared to, once the honeymoon phase of that relationship is done, and you come to realizations that the idea that you projected onto this relationship, that person may never be able to match that. And that's a hard thing to kind of flip or switch. Like I say, you have to be very, very self-aware. The other person has to be very, very self-aware. And y'all have to make a committed agreement to continue to work on this thing because relationships, it requires constant work. It requires daily work, especially the relationship with ourselves. That's the biggest one that we have in our life. The most important one outside of course, God, is the relationship that we have with ourselves. So this can be a moment where maybe even that's happening. Maybe we are trying to live up to this image that we had of ourselves at one point, and that's shattering, especially as these energies start to square Saturn. And now we have to deal with that reality. And then we have to be okay with who we are in this moment. You have to mature. That's okay. It's such. I know I'm going in right now. It's like I'm channeling this. It's that kind of a week, y'all. And this is just Thursday. And this isn't even the biggest day, but that's the new moon in Gemini. So I'm not going to sugarcoat it because I'll be doing y'all a disservice if I sugarcoat this shit. So we're going to Thursday. we continue. Thursday. This moon is going to be excited. It's going throughout Gemini, and it's going to, of course, sextile over to Chiron. you know, by the end of the day. So that's positive, but it's only really positive if you can see the opportunity in unlocking, your superpower with that key that is Chiron. And by that, I mean unlocking the understanding that even through the things that you perceive to have hurt you, or your traumas, or your scarring and stuff like that, kind of the weird energy that Chiron kind of brings, you know, depending upon all that, it's whether or not you can unlock that. It's going to determine, how you really feel about yourself a little bit more, especially once you get to this point, especially at 22 degrees. It's a quantum degree. 2 plus 2 is 4. That's Uranian energy. That's Aquarian energy. So it can be very, very quantum. You know what I'm saying? So it can be weird. Though this could be interesting conversations that kind of come out of nowhere. I would not be surprised if, especially with it being involved with Chiron and with all the relationship stuff that we have with the Sun and Venus here too, with the new moon. These can be conversations where someone really just speaks from their trauma and their hurt, and they just dump it. Like, be prepared, be on the lookout for people that just dump all their emotions on you and all their trauma and all their hurt, because it can definitely happen on a day like this where they just dump, So you want to just be careful too. And especially with that moon in Gemini, you gotta, that's why you gotta ask yourself, I'm gonna keep bringing it back to this, are your desires your own? It's not just desires, it's like, are your emotions your own? Your thoughts, your ideas, your passions. That's the thing about this. So people can dump with a moon sextile Chiron on this day, even though generally a sextile is a harmonious aspect. It's a nice aspect. It's generally positive. But if you identify solely from your trauma and your hurt, and you don't see the lessons and what that has taught you and how you can be stronger, there can be a moment here, an opportunity. So opportunity doesn't necessarily have to be a good thing. There could be an opportunity that arises here where you may find yourself dumping on other people, your friends, family members, colleagues. It could be a good opportunity, though, if you feel that energy. This will be a great time to journal. It will probably be better to journal with an energy like this if you feel like you need to process some of these emotions that have been unprocessed, some of these thoughts that you've been kind of suppressing. It will be a great opportunity with this moon sextile over to Chiron, coming off of the new moon. It's in the new moon phase, but coming off of this conjunction with the Sun and Venus here in Gemini. Great opportunity to write out your emotions. Write it out. Do your best not to dump on people. Because we all got trauma. We all got hurt. We all have scarring. Not just from this life, but from multiple lifetimes. Like I said, this is 2 plus 2, that's 4. It's Uranian. So this, you may be pulling out trauma from different past lives and shit. So, like I said, this will be a good opportunity to write it out, journal, have a diary. Great time to have a diary right now. Write some poetry. That'll be a better way to, transmute, to adapt this energy, if you will. So, yeah, that's Thursday. That's Thursday. So the moon looks like it's going to sextile Chiron, and it's gonna keep moving. It's getting ready to sextile Mars, getting ready to square, Neptune. That's gonna be coming into Friday. We're going to see that. We're going to see the moon, of course. It's going to sextile Mars, and it's going to square Neptune. Mars getting ready to come into Taurus. And I think Mars is an interesting energy here because, outside of the moon, it's not really being aspected by a whole lot this week. And it's past Chiron now. It's getting ready to go into Taurus. And remember, Mars traditionally rules Scorpio, so it doesn't really want to be in Taurus. Just want to talk about, we have been in this moment here where it's taking these actions and stuff like that. you know, we have to ask ourselves, am I really acting on what I really want and who I really am? You know, this moon sextiling Mars, you know, this can bring up an opportunity to maybe take some sort of action towards a goal or a plan. But the square to Neptune is going to be asking you once again, of course, is it fool's gold? Especially with Neptune, especially with the illusion. This can cast like a, don't get caught in a genjutsu, right? Like, don't get caught in a genjutsu. Like, here. You're probably like wondering, like, what in the world are you talking about? I'm a nerd, so I want to use some of these different references and stuff, but do not get caught in a genjutsu. Oh, wait, no, that's not the one I'm looking for. Where am I looking for? That's what I'm looking for, yeah. Don't get caught up in one of these, okay? Where it's like an illusion and you think you're fighting the person and then you look and your arm is melting. Don't get caught up in this. And that's the thing, Gemini rules the extremities too. You think that you're fighting someone and you think you got the upper hand and next thing you know your arm is melting. But this is an illusion. It's not actually real. But don't get caught up in this. Don't get caught up in this genjutsu here. Because that's what Moon freaking squared Neptune at the end at 29 degrees. And with Mars here too, which is all about, it's a warrior energy. It's fighting. You think you're fighting something. Yeah, you don't realize that you are caught up in a genjutsu. Like Kakashi here. Was stuck in this genjutsu for how long? And this was all illusions. Don't get caught up in one of these, man. Because it's definitely possible with that kind of energy. So, just saying. But I do think that Mars can kind of help us get through some of this energy too. Especially when it comes into Taurus, I think it actually will be kind of interesting. I think Mars went through quite a bit when it was with Aries. It wasn't your standard Mars and Aries transit. It went through the retrograde zone of Mercury. It hit the North Node. It hit Chiron. It was not really simple and clear cut. Mars would much rather have it be a little bit more simple and clear cut and to the point. It wasn't really like that for Mars. So coming into Taurus, it actually is going to kind of make things a little bit more simple. Now Uranus is there, but it's going to make things a little bit more simple. It squares Pluto as soon as it gets into Taurus, but you know, it's going to be interesting. The other thing about Mars and Taurus too is that Taurus rules the throat. It rules the throat chakra, and Mars going there, especially with all this energy in Gemini. If you are not communicating what you really think, if you're not, or if you lie too much, that's another thing with Gemini. If you lie too much, especially once Mars goes into Taurus, you're going to get a sore throat. Sore throats are going to be on the rise. People are going to get more strep throat as well when Mars goes into Taurus. And energetically, these are going to be individuals that are not communicating from a place of authenticity. They're going to be lying a lot, right? Or maybe you're just plain unlucky because Jupiter's there. And Jupiter is generally about luck, but when Gemini, it's not as lucky, right? So just be on the lookout for that. Like, there are going to be more throat issues once Mars goes into Taurus, because Mars does rule inflammation. And so with Taurus being the throat chakra and the neck region, this could be inflammation of the throat. So I would not be surprised if we start to see a rise in people with strep throat, like it actually goes around and stuff like that. And people have like a sore throat and shit like that. Inflamed stuff with that. So just putting it out there, you know, come back to this video. If we hear something in like a week or 2 or 3 weeks, whatever, and everyone's suddenly having a sore throat, you know, you heard it here first. You know, I don't know too many other astrologers that are going to mention that. Maybe medical astrologers, but you're probably not going to get that from too many people. So, just saying. So, Friday, of course, we're going to see all that happen. Now, the cool thing, I guess, about this is that it's just happening earlier in the day. So I think the Genjutsu, if anything, is going to be probably playing out more so in the dreams. So it's going to be kind of interesting. So um, the dreams are going to be pretty interesting, I would say, Thursday going into Friday. Dreams are going to be very, very interesting. So pay attention to that. Now, that moon's going to go into Cancer early in the day on Friday. It's going to go early in the day on Friday. And that's pretty much the main thing that happens on this day. We're going to see this moon. Now it's at home. It will make a quincunx over to, Pluto. But actually, like I said, we've been talking about this the whole time, but this Venus is getting ever so closer to the Saturn. What's interesting too is that they don't even square at 18 degrees. They square at 19. Because Saturn has moved to the 19th degree of Pisces. Right? So it's interesting. It's like the Sun and Venus are traveling with each other. And even speed-wise, if we look at it, Venus is moving faster than the Sun. So it's actually starting to separate a little bit more from the Sun. Right? So that's the thing about this. This moon goes into Cancer, and, it's gonna kind of, now that the moon is kind of leading the pack, we're going to be kind of leading with our emotions a little bit more on this day. There's not really a whole lot of exact aspects happening, but really it's more so just the buildup of Venus and the Sun squaring over to Saturn in Pisces. That's the main thing that's really happening here. So we pretty much go throughout Friday, and, whenever I see days like this where there's not like a whole lot happening, I wouldn't be surprised if things kind of happen, as far as like, on days where I see that there's not a lot happening in the astrology, aren't necessarily days where nothing's going to happen. I think it's almost like it's like too quiet almost. But like I said, we have all this building energy with this massive, massive square, right? So but at least the moon's in Cancer. At least it's in a spot where it feels good. At least it's not opposing Pluto. You know what I'm saying? It's not opposing anything in Capricorn except for Ceres. So it's, it's in a better place as far as that goes. Mercury's at +10, the moon's at +8, Mars at +6, Venus is at +3, and then you have -2, -5, -5, rounding it out with Jupiter, Sun, and Saturn, right? So, and that's the interesting thing too. So like Saturn's at -5 and the Sun's at -5. So it's like, and they're squaring each other. They're like, you have the largest energy with the Sun, and then Saturn, which is the third largest energy after Jupiter, right? So, now going into Saturday is kind of interesting because this is when we start to see things start to pop off. We're going to see, of course, Venus hit 19 degrees, and it's going to square Saturn exact at 4:20. Blaze it. No, I like that. Squares it exactly at 4:20 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So hopefully if you're in another part of the world, you can blaze up on that moment. This moon, of course, will be at 10 degrees of Cancer at that current moment, right? And we're going to see, of course, the moon is going to square the nodes, as well as Lilith. So, and this is going to, that's the weird thing about this. I feel like this is a week, especially with all this energy. It's like, we may see some stuff in the news, but I feel like it's going to be the weekend where it's almost going to be like things are kind of quiet almost, but so we don't want to just like have like this false sense of security, like nothing's going to happen, you know what I mean? Or that everything's going to be kind of calm because it's the weekend and stuff like that. No, this is going to be a weekend to remember. We're going to see that moon is going to square the nodes while Venus is in square to Neptune. And oh boy, this is interesting too, especially with Black Moon Lilith here involved. This is definitely talking about our relationships. It's definitely talking about how, we, present ourselves in the world with that Aries energy. And that moon in Cancer is definitely going to be trying to like balance things out, trying to fill things through. 1 + 3 is 4. So once again, we get another quantum kind of energy with this. And we have Chiron at 2 plus 2, so we have a harmony of 4 energy all over this freaking chart. So it's this Saturday, it's kind of an interesting day here. You know, whenever the moon is in square to the nodes, it's like we're kind of caught between, like, are we going to go towards our north node, or are we going to go towards the south node more? And the south node is there with Black Moon Lilith. It's like trying to, come up with these, that's the thing with this too. It's like, it's giving me these toxic kind of vibes, where it's like someone who's willing to do whatever it takes just to put themselves in a position of power, and to, I guess, build a relationship or be in the place. This is definitely, maybe some sort of diplomat somewhere, trying to really pull on the heartstrings of other people. You know what I'm saying? I know that we just recently had this election in Mexico where they just elected like their first like Jewish female president, but there's so much like controversy surrounding that election, like it's insane. Like if you just like briefly look into like the Mexican, like the new president of Mexico, just look into it. There's a lot of stuff going on there. That is classic Black Moon Lilith South Node Libra. And now with this moon squaring it, and this is when people start to really formulate how they actually feel about these things. But once again, are your desires your own? Are your emotions your own? Or are you following someone else's shit? Venus here squaring Saturn, especially when it comes to like the value, money, we're going to be looking for answers. Especially with the sun here and Mercury here, of course. We're looking for answers. We are looking for answers. Now, don't think we're going to get the answers on Saturday. I don't think we're going to get the answers on Saturday. We're probably not going to get it on Sunday either. But I think Saturday is kind of one of those eerily quiet days, but it does feel like something's percolating. It's probably not going to be too quiet because Venus is squaring Saturn. Right? Saturn is about what? Adulting, the war of attrition. It's about growing up. It's about responsibility. And Venus in Gemini is very much so the little kid that wants the candy bar, but then their mom or their dad tells them they can't have it and they throw a fucking temper tantrum. Especially with the moon in Cancer. Temper tantrums. Like if anything happens, there'll be temper tantrums on Saturday. Of people wanting something with the Venus, and they think it's shiny, they think they want it, and it's like they either get denied or they get it and it sucks, and they're like, wah, that didn't go the way I wanted to. Well, you gotta deal with the consequences of your actions, your wants, your desires. It happens. It happens. This could play out. Look, it doesn't have to be that big. This can play out simply in your life. This can be as simple as you going to a restaurant and you ordering something that you thought was going to be good and it ends up that sucks. But then, like, your friend orders something, or you like the server walks by with like a plate of food and going to another table, and that bitch looks good, and you're just like, man, I knew I should have got that one. I knew I should have ordered that one instead. Why did I get this one? It happens. That's how it can play out in a simple way, So it doesn't have to be like super, super extreme. I'm just saying that this can be a day where like people really, they get upset and they get, they throw a freaking temper tantrum because they can't have something, or they want something from the universe, and the universe says no. Parents say no. Somebody says no, or it doesn't turn out the way that you want. And then it's like, can you adapt? Can you be okay with that? Oh, it's going to be tough with the moon in Cancer squaring the nodes. That's Saturday. All right. Now, the moon is going to trine over to Neptune later in the day. So that's kind of nice, right? And even creates like this kind of loose grand water trine with Pallas Athena. Almost kind of creates a kite. It's not exactly a kite, obviously, because, Uranus and Saturn are like 5 degrees from like a sextile, so it's not quite a kite, but it's kind of almost there. I think this is about like just seeing like, the things that we felt like were going to lift us up and maybe they don't quite work, maybe we kind of go back to the drawing board a little bit, or maybe we realize that, hey, maybe that thing just didn't work out. It is what it is. We just kind of chalk it up. Maybe we cut our losses and we just move on. You know what I'm saying? And this could play out as simple as, like I said, maybe you just order the wrong thing at the restaurant and then he's like, you know what? I'll get that other dish next time. You know what I mean? Don't let it ruin your whole night. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's really what it comes down to Saturday is that whatever thing doesn't quite work out the way that you thought it was going to work out, don't let it ruin your whole energy. Don't let it ruin your whole night because it's not worth it to let it ruin your whole night like that. You know what I'm saying? So now Sunday is the day where it really pops off. Get a swig of water before this one. Because like I said, a lot of stuff is happening. So let's drill down. Mars enters into Taurus. Boom. Immediate transition. We're going to feel that. Right? Now, granted, this is at nighttime. So some people might be awake. Some people won't be awake. Depends upon, where you are in the world, whatever like that. Here in America, some people may still be up at this time. West Coast people will probably still be up. But bam, Mars into Taurus. Immediate shift. Right? At the same time of that shift, the moon is at 22 degrees squaring Chiron. Talk about a shift. Talk about if you are feeling way too much into the Chiron and into like the trauma or the hurt, and you're not knowing how to transmute it and stuff like that, and then Mars going into the Taurus, and then you want to take some sort of action to try and fix it. Oh man, this is when the bull can get really angry. That's the thing about Mars is about aggression, and with this moon squaring Chiron, the bull can get very, very angry with this. So I would say based off of the events on Saturday, you get to this moment, and it's temporary because the moon moves pretty fast. But if you're out at the club and you're partying, and you just happen to bump the wrong person, that bull's going to see red. That bull's going to see red, and it may not work out in your favor. I'm just saying. I would say that Saturday's a day is be cautious when going out and doing that sort of stuff. If you happen to be out late, if you will, because that's going to. I'm just saying. I know things happen at clubs and bars and shit like that all the time. But I'm just saying, if someone is very much so unaware and they're playing out these energies subconsciously and stuff, with the Mars going into Taurus, that can awaken. That in many ways can awaken the beast that's probably just been lying dormant and shit like that. Also, wouldn't be surprised where we might see some more volcanic activity with this sort of energy. I know there was a volcano in Hawaii that recently stopped. Wouldn't be surprised if it started back up. But we'll probably see that more once Mars gets closer to Uranus. That's definitely going to be more, volcanic stuff. Earthquakes are probably going to become a little bit more common, or we're probably going to see some type of major earthquake with Mars on Uranus once it continues throughout Taurus, stuff like that. But I'm just saying to just be on the lookout for that sort of stuff. So, but yeah, boom, Mars enters into Taurus. Boom, Moon squares Chiron, right? And then we got 24 degrees, boom, Moon sextiles Uranus. Now, by this time, most people are going to be asleep here in America. If you're in Europe, it'll be the first part of your day and stuff like that. So there's not really a whole lot happening with this. Like I said, it's moving really quickly. Like I said, if anything, could present an opportunity where we could, Uranus definitely adapting things and kind of changing things up in the whole Taurus energy. But this can be about, maybe us having the opportunity to maybe even, empathize with those that have maybe a different set of values than ours, or maybe we try and find some sort of common ground. There could be an opportunity here that opens up that allows us to be able to do that and see that, right? Now, of course, as the day continues, Boom. Sun square Saturn. Now, the freaking sermons in church on Sunday are going to be lit. Going to be lit. I don't go to church, but I'm just saying, I can only imagine they're going to be lit with this energy. I'm gonna ask my mom. I'm gonna call my mom after. I think I worked that day. I'm gonna call my mom after church. I'm like, yo, what was y'all sermon about today? Because I'm sure it's going to be. I'm sure it's going to be intense with a sun squaring Saturn, right? But this has been building up all week, and it crescendos and it converges on this Sunday, right? And what's interesting about this square too is that it's happening while the sun's at the top of the chart. Now, the sun likes to be in the 10th house, but not in this way. Much rather be there at nighttime where it can't be seen, so it can work from behind the scenes. But this is happening in the first part of the day, so it's much more seen. Saturn doesn't really like that. And even if you look at like just the scores themselves, hold on. Let's see. Properties. Let's see if okay, there we go. Boom. Yeah, if we look at the scores, the Sun and Saturn are both at -5. They are both at -5. So they are both frustrated. Mars is at -4. Jupiter is at -2. So we have Mercury, we have the Moon, and we have Venus that are all positive, right? And it's mostly the Moon and Mercury, right? So this is not going to be an easy energy to deal with. And I'm going to read for you all the Sabian symbol, because I found it to be rather interesting with the Sabian symbol for this one. I read because they both deal with maturing, growing up, and those sort of things. So, Sabian symbol. I'm going to read, let's see, Gemini 19, look up, and then we're going to go to properties, and I'm going to go to this, and boom. And then bring that down for you guys. Yeah. Okay. A cafeteria with an abundance of choices. Well, let me move that over so y'all can actually see it. There you go. This symbol shows the wide range of nourishment, opportunity, and the ability to have things in our modern world. There are so many choices, but each has its price, so be careful what you choose. Each will nourish you, but some things are far more nourishing and sustaining than others. However, there is so much on display and available that if you don't like your first choice, you can get something else. That is, if you can afford it. Take what you need, enjoy it, and realize the abundance that's happening in your life. Make sure that what you get is good quality, as many things may not be. Overwhelming alternatives, having one's hunger satisfied versus satiation. Everything provided. Self-service, salivating over what's on display. Overweight, credit cards. Taking everything you can regardless of needs, inability to make decisions, so many choices, things so near but so far, inability to satisfy, being stuffed in stuff. This is a day that can deal with excess, especially with the Sun squaring Saturn. This can deal with excess. This can deal with people taking more than what they really need. This can also deal with the inability to make a decision and to go for a choice. This could be about where you may be paralyzed, paralysis by overanalysis. That's the whole thing with Gemini is thinking about these things, so we can, find ourselves in a paralysis state by overanalyzing the things that we want. I think it's going to be sort of a day. It's like, well, Venus already made the square, so we've already addressed the value aspect of it, and now we are being revealed the actual choices. Are we actually going to take that leap of faith and actually make that choice? Or are we going to be living on someone else's desire again? But I'm saying, like, there can be an element here. Yeah, there could be an overwhelming amount of choices. But it's like, are you going to eat to the point of being satisfied? Or are you going to eat to the point where you are just completely overstuffed? And you are just full and it's all like miserably full. And that's the thing that is happening right now. There are some people that especially from a material aspect, have so much that they're actually miserable from it. But they have somehow convinced themselves that they need more, and they need more, and they need more. And there are also people out there that aren't even bothering trying to get maybe their fair share, or maybe try to just get what they feel like they deserve. Some people are undercutting themselves. Some people are underselling themselves, right? They're not giving themselves the opportunity to even pick, to even be involved in that conversation, right? But yeah, I like how it says this here. There are so many choices, but each has its price, so be careful what you choose. Each will nourish you, but some things are far more nourishing and sustaining than others. Yes, I could probably eat a hamburger and an apple, but the apple's probably going to be better for my body, depending upon what else I put on that hamburger. Or a better example would be like, yeah, I can eat a cookie and I can eat a peach, and the peach is probably going to be better for me. It's going to be more nourishing. My body is going to be able to use more of the peach. It's not going to be able to use much of the cookie, as much of it. It may taste good, It may hit a certain receptor with the sugar and stuff like that, but the peach is probably better for me, And that's the thing about that. And here's the other part too. However, there is so much on display and available that if you don't like your first choice, you can get something else. That is if you can afford it. But you can get something else. So many people feel like they are pigeonholing themselves to one thing, and they don't think they have the choice to get something else. But you do have the choice. If you picked the hot dog and it sucked, the next day you can get pizza at the cafeteria. If the pizza wasn't that great, maybe you get the sub. If the sub wasn't that great, then you get the chicken fajitas. If the chicken fajitas wasn't great, you get the salad. If the salad wasn't great, then maybe you're just too damn picky and nothing is up to your standard. You don't like any of it. Maybe you should just bring your own food. Maybe you just bring your own lunch to the cafeteria, right? Because apparently none of the food in the cafeteria works, but there's got to be something there that works, But that's the thing about it. Maybe you're just too picky. No, I don't like that. I don't like that. I don't want that. I don't want that. I don't want that. That's the other part that I can bring up here is like pickiness. You can be too picky, But the universe is like, make a choice. The universe is like, choose. Do something, right? So especially with Gemini here too, weighing out all the different options. This would be the equivalent to like freaking. Hold on, let me just do this real fast. Like, it's freaking just me. I'm going to use my nerd. It's going to come out here and stuff, you know what I'm saying? So this one's actually really cute. I'm gonna do this one. Freak yeah. But I think some of y'all are kind of doing this, right? Y'all are doing, let's see. Pick your starter, right? If the universe is like, pick your starter, all right? Some of you guys are over calculating What starter you want to pick? Well, if I pick Squirtle, I'll be able to beat Brock pretty early, but then I have to go up against Bessie, which is a water trainer, but then I have to hit a Lieutenant Surge, which is an electric trainer, but then there's this thing and that thing and this thing. I could pick Charmander because of this thing and that. Like, there can be an over-analysis of this. And yes, I know in the game, generally, you can't go back and pick another starter after you pick one, and you're locked in, but I'm just using this as a metaphor. You can probably catch one in the wild if you wanted to. Freaking Ash did. You know what I'm saying? So, like, and that's the thing about, and yeah, Ash has plot armor and shit like that, but you get what I'm trying to say here. Like, maybe a better representation is like maybe you try and like there's like a certain Pokemon that you want to catch, but then you're like over analyzing every little thing. Or this could be equivalent to like maybe in the competitive scene where it's like they have to have like a certain like stats. Like maybe you pick Squirtle and then you look at Squirtle's stats and it's not the stats that you want, so you keep resetting it. You keep resetting your game. You keep resetting your game. Or you want to get a shiny Pokemon, you keep resetting your game. You keep resetting your game, and that's just delaying the journey. That's just delaying you like actually starting, and that just causes frustration, and you're just picky and you're just not choosing. And there's an element here where it's like we can be too picky as well, where we just. He's like, yeah, we can pick another. That's a cool thing about that Sabian symbol. It's like, yeah, we can pick something else. But then it's like commitment. Because Saturn wants commitment. That's the other part of this too. Are you going to commit to it? I'm a Squirtle guy myself. But I've done saves where I chose Charmander and I chose Bulbasaur, and I had fun playthroughs with them. I'm just saying though, and that's the other thing too, is that like maybe when in that particular game, maybe you obviously can't go back and choose your starter, but you can start over the game again and play with Charmander or play with Bulbasaur and have a whole different experience as well and enjoy it. So that's the thing here, you know? So many people feel locked in that they have to be a certain way, that things are a certain way, and there's even an element here where you can't teach an old dog new tricks. But this is Gemini energy that's about curiosity. Keep the curiosity alive. Saturn is here where, yes, it's wanting us to mature, it's wanting us to commit, it's wanting us to make a decision, but at the same time, we don't want it to completely absorb our sense of curiosity and our sense of wanting to explore the many possibilities. If we just get stuck into think it's going to be a certain way and it just ages and it gets old and then it rusts, then we will fail to see the incredible amount of opportunities that are being opened up to us, the amazing relationships that we can build and make, and the connections that we can have, the experiences that we can have. It's a lot of great opportunity here for some really awesome shit, some really awesome collaborations, and your dreams. This is the thing too, like even though it's a square, dream big. Saturn is going to come in and kind of temper it a little bit, because that's what it's going to do. It's like, yeah, you can dream big, but there's still like, hey, everything that we have, like the computer, like the phone, everything started off as an idea. You know, a big idea, a big vision, but there are steps that were taken in order to bring that vision into the physical reality and to bring it to fruition, right? And a lot of those steps, a lot of those meticulous steps, a lot of those steps that we want to skirt past, we want to just like try like, nah, I don't want to do that. You can't avoid them, but you can still have the big picture. You can still have the curiosity. You can still have the dream, but there are steps involved that's going to require us to mature a little bit and do the things that we don't want to do, like the editing, like the making the phone calls, you know, sweeping. I don't know, like that's the like, you know, that's the other thing too. It's like sometimes with certain tasks, like say like, all right, like so just at my job, whatever like that, I work retail and everything, right? So it's like there are certain things that I don't necessarily like to do. I do them, like, but it's part of the job. Like, you know, gotta sweep the store. You know what I do when I sweep the store? I turn the music up, and I have fun with it. You know what I'm saying? So that you can do that. You can adapt the situation. This is Gemini and this is Pisces. You can adapt the situation and have fun with it. You know what I'm saying? Or, like I said, because this is Gemini, because Venus is involved here and it's about relationships, if there is a certain task within the project that you don't necessarily like to do, maybe you find someone that is good at it, or maybe they actually like it. Maybe there's someone out there that actually likes editing. Like if you're a writer, whatever like that, you find an editor, and maybe they actually enjoy editing. But if you just stay small and don't connect, and you aren't extroverted, because we need to be more extroverted right now. You can't just stay in our little bubbles. If you don't go out and see what's possible, you won't meet the people that can do the things that they like doing, the things that you don't want to do. And maybe even there's an element where it's like maybe they even teach you a little bit about it. Maybe you don't become like a master at it, but maybe they teach you a little bit about it. I think that's the other cool thing about this too, is that this can give us an opportunity to learn, from someone else that's a bit more of a master, Saturn, in a particular craft that we might be interested in. That's what Gemini really much so is, and the Saturn's more like the master as far as this. So this can be an opportunity to kind of learn from somebody that's been doing it, Adds a skill to our arsenal. That's another aspect of this Sun square Saturn that can come up. Right? Mentorship. I told you I was going in today. I thought I was playing. So yeah. And then of course, the moon is going to shift into Leo. And as soon as it shifts into Leo, bam, major T square. It's going to oppose Pluto, and these energies are going to square Mars. If it wasn't already enough, too, with all that. And of course, what is Mercury doing at this time? Trining the South Node. Sextiling the North Node. Right? Sunday is a day. I don't really get T-squares like this that often. But it's a day. It's going to oppose this Pluto. Hold on. Let me move that up. Hold on. There we go. Sorry. It's going to oppose this Pluto. And square Mars, which now is in Taurus. And you gotta remember, this Mars doesn't want to be there. So this is going to be like, wow, with the moon too and Leo, we may feel more inspired and more passionate to kind of take things forward. Pluto was reminding us that things are going to have to go back into Capricorn, so there's still some things that we're going to have to address. That's where Pluto's focus is on. So we can't just escape fully into the Aquarius land as far as that goes. And then Mars is in Taurus, which is going to slow things down. Got to take our time with this. We can't just rush right into it. The moon is going to want to rush right into it. But Mars is checking this moon and is like, yo, hold your horses. Let's plan. We can't just, the tree's not going to grow overnight. We actually have to plant the seed. And then we have to take care of it. Then we have to water it. And it's not even going to grow and bear fruit immediately. So it's like, whoa. Chill for a second. But Mars is going to be very angsty especially when it first gets into Taurus. Because it's going to want to do all this stuff, but things are going to slow down. We've got to be a little more meticulous about our actions. Not only that, but our actions are going to have more obvious physical ramifications. Because it is Taurus. Like I said, with the moon here too, squaring it, and Pluto there as well, it's like there can be accidents, inflammation things, different things like that. I've already been talking about like the sore throat type of deal. When you could maybe even lose your voice or something like that. I don't know. Some of these preachers and pastors are probably going to lose their voice preaching on So, especially in some of these black churches, like on Sunday, they're going to be doing all the. I just scared my cat. They're going to be doing Jesus. They're going to be doing all that, man. Some of these, they're going to come into money like. Just saying, but you see how insane Sunday is, and how I spent a good amount of time talking about the new moon in Gemini. This Sunday though is wild. I haven't seen a day like this in a while when it comes to the astrology, where so much stuff is packed into one day. I have not seen this in a while. It's insane. Let alone the moon and Mars are at the 0 point of their respective signs, and it's dealing with Pluto as well in Aquarius, which is going back into Capricorn. This is the only retrograde planet. So like I said, there could be this element where we want to move things forward into the future, but there's going to be something that kind of tempers us, and we have to realize that we still have things that we have to address and fix and work through with all the Capricorn energy, So don't let a day like Sunday discourage you from moving towards your dreams and actually going for it. Just know that things are going to take time and it's not going to be immediate. We still got to figure out a way to have fun through this. You know what I'm saying? The sun is still in square to Saturn as well. So it's a square to Saturn, like obviously by the time that this T square happens, but it's going to be a square to Saturn all day, you know? It's going to be an interesting one. It's not going to be the easiest energy, but I think the way that we kind of get through this is that we have to have a little bit of faith. We have to just trust in the process. We can't try and force what we think are the facts on the situation. We have to be open to new information. I think that's the other thing with the Sun square Saturn. We have to be open to new information. We have to take the headset off and actually see what's around us and, clean up a little bit. Maybe it's a little bit junky. I think we'll see that a little bit more, especially once the moon goes into Virgo. And that'll be more of a next week thing where we talk about. Because the moon's going to go into Virgo, what day? It's going to go into Virgo on Wednesday, so that's more of a next week kind of deal. So, but the moon, of course, it will hit that first quarter square too. So that's the thing about this. And I think if we just kind of continue, just going into Monday, we'll have Mars, which will officially square Pluto on Monday once it hits 1 degree, right? So it's going to officially square Pluto. And then we're going to have the moon. It's going to sextile over to Mercury. So, like I said, that can provide some nice opportunities that kind of open up. It's a little bit later in the day, so it's more like a building aspect. But it can provide some opportunities where, maybe we can connect with other people that have similar passions and similar, creative endeavors, if you will, and do some collaborations as far as that goes. I think that can be cool. And then, of course, going into that Tuesday, you see how after Sunday, the energy kind of just slacks off a little bit. Venus is separating a little bit more from the sun. That moon is going to trine over to Chiron. And then it's going to square Uranus as well on Tuesday. So it's we have the new moon. Energy builds, converges into Sunday and is intense as fuck. And then Monday kind of slacks off a little bit, and then Tuesday kind of slacks off a little bit. So we get a little bit of a break. But it's what's weird about the Monday, Tuesday stuff is that because all that energy is happening on the weekend on Sunday, a lot of people may be playing it out later. So we may see a lot of the energy just start. For a lot of people, they'll probably feel like Monday and Tuesday are the crazy days when really it was actually Sunday. Maybe a lot of it's subconscious because a lot of it's dealing with the Neptunian energy and these squares with the Sun and Venus to Saturn, but also that freaking massive T square with the Moon, Pluto, and Mars. And yeah, we'll feel the Moon's presence more because we feel that energy a little bit more. We'll feel Mars a little bit more because it just went into Taurus, but Pluto, that's a little more generational. It's a little bit more subtle, so we may not feel it as much. The energy is not as obvious, especially with it being retrograde, so it's turned offline. So I hope that this message helps. At the very least, I hope that just you can tell based off of the way I just did this, my animation, and just seeing the sheer amount of stuff that's happening between Thursday and Sunday is going to make this to be a rather intense week, and one that we will remember for a while. I think, like I said, the best way that we kind of get through it, though, is to learn how to adapt, to learn how to take in new information, and to try not to take everything so personally. I think there's elements where we do have to get a little more serious about things, but try not to take everything so personally. There's an element of faith here. Journal things out. Try not to project too much on other people. Try not to emotionally dump on other people. People may emotionally dump onto you, and if you're watching this, you're a very empathic person more than likely, so someone's probably going to emotionally dump on you. You're going to have to learn how to not take that emotion as your own. And learn how to set up like those proper emotional boundaries. I think that's part of the moon opposed Pluto and squaring Mars. That's going to definitely be dealing with a lot of boundaries stuff. So I feel like a lot of boundary issues may come up on Sunday with that T-square. Especially considering that you have 0 with the moon and 0 with Mars. 0 creates a boundary, if you will. And that's Scorpio energy, and Pluto rules Scorpio, and that's all about boundaries. So that thing could definitely come up on Sunday. So, but think about setting those, healthy emotional boundaries, different things like that I think are going to be important. And honestly, I just I just wanted to just kind of put it out there that, I know that we are doing our best to figure out and to process what in the hell is going on right now, what we're all going through. And I know that a lot of us are just simply doing the best that we can. And, just have a little bit of grace in yourself, have a little bit of grace on other people this week. Now, of course, don't let people just come in and just fuck with your energy, obviously. And also do your best to recognize, what is truly your wants, your desires, your ideas, your curiosities, your thoughts, your emotions, and what may be someone else's. But there's an element here where we can connect with other people. We can heal through that. I think there's a lot of healing that's going to happen this week. But a lot of times with the healing, there can come, some challenges and some difficulties when it comes to like the healing and stuff. So, but I think there's going to be a lot of healing this week. And we'll come out the other end of it stronger and better for it. So, run when you can, crawl if you need to, stand where you can. This is going to be a week where you're going to be the strong one at times, and you're going to be the weak one at times. And accept and embrace all the roles, that you may find yourself in. If you feel like you need to lean on somebody, lean on somebody. If you are strong enough in that moment, they can lean on you, cool. The emotions may flip, they may switch rather quickly, especially considering the fact that this is a new moon in Gemini, and then it goes into Cancer, right? So it's going to be a pretty interesting week for sure, but I know that you can make it through it. I know that you can. I know that you have all of the capabilities in the world, and I know that you already have amazing people in your life that support you, that believe in you, that trust you, and that you can make it through this. So I just think it's going to be a very intense week where we are going to be confronted with a lot of these different shadows and different aspects of ourselves, and sort of like kind of like a purge almost. This does kind of feel like a Phoenix Rising kind of a week, you know what I mean? So let's see what we have in the cards for everybody. All right. I have the Three of Cups in reverse. Honestly, yeah, makes sense. It's like we can have the party, we can celebrate and connect with people, but I think we just have to be careful about who we are connecting to. You know, I had that followed by the Sun card here in reverse as well. I think there's just really honestly, there's going to be some information, the new information that kind of comes out, maybe about certain groups of people or just in general. But, you know, we can utilize this information that comes out, these new lights, these new informations. We can use them to our advantage and not feel like we have to be, at the whim of somebody else or some other, organization or whatever like that. I'm going to cut the deck here too to kind of get a little bit more clarity. I guess that card wants to come out because it's just kind of hanging, but I wanted to cut the deck. That card was the Four of Cups in reverse. Yeah, I think this is really about, the universe is actually giving us some awesome things right now, and we have to be willing to see it. That's really what this comes down to. It's about, what the universe is giving us versus maybe what someone else may be giving us. And I really am getting this sort of image where it's like you have like two people. You have one person that's like, dressed up nice. They have nice stuff. They have a nice car. They have a very nice suit or whatever like that. They have all the money in the world, and they give you a freaking gift bag. And then the next person is like some random person. Maybe they look a little bit disheveled. Maybe they don't really look like they have the most and stuff like that. And then they give you something. There's a good chance that the person that's disheveled looking and kind of almost unkept looking might actually be the that could be the gift from that person. It could be the thing that you're actually looking. Because oftentimes the universe will bring us these bigger lessons and these bigger gifts through people that we just would not expect it to be, And I have also, of course, the Chariot card. They're all reversed, so whenever I see cards that are all reversed, you can read it both ways. But yeah, the Chariot card, this deals with an ability to be able to move outside your comfort zone and be able to see what else is out there and actually to rise to the occasion and kind of mature. I think that's the thing. We have to kind of move out of the playpen a little bit. This is about moving outside of the sandbox. And, this is about actually, getting out there and playing with the big dogs, getting the big leagues, if you will. But the Chariot in reverse doesn't want to do that. He's afraid. He doesn't want to do that. Why? I just feel drawn to draw another card too. So, well, we have the Ace of Coins in reverse. Like I said, so all reverse cards. So yeah, this comes down to like we have to just get back to the basics of it. What do we want? What do we value? Like, what are we going to put our trust in? And I think that's really what it comes down to. But if you don't develop that relationship with yourself, and if you don't trust yourself, then you're not going to really be able to make those connections and be able to get outside the sandbox and be able to have the new information and be able to accept the beautiful gifts from the universe that are coming this week, accept the healing. And I think this really comes down to like the universe is like, you don't have to play in the sandbox forever. You can actually level up and move out of that, and maybe there's like this fear that if we move out of the sandbox that we're not going to be as successful out there, that we're not going to be able to like achieve success, or maybe we're afraid that a predator is going to get us. This is like the equivalent to like someone picking their starter Pokemon and leveling them up all the way to like leveling that Charmander all the way up to Charizard before you even get to the first gym, just because you had this information. Oh yeah, so Brock is a rock type gym leader. Rock is good against fire type. So to overcompensate for this, I'm gonna take my Charmander all the way up to a Charizard. You don't need to do that. You don't even need to battle Brock with Charmander. You can catch a Nidoran that learns double kick and then pwn his ass. Right? So it's like there are other options here, but I think if we get too much in our head and we like over prepare for something, when we will miss out on some of the greatest opportunities that the universe is trying to show us. I hope that metaphor lands. Wise leader, you are a beacon for others. You are a beacon for others. The only way to really be that beacon is to actually get out there and do it. So it's like, and here's the thing about being a leader too, right? I think we can all be leaders in different areas and followers in different areas. Leaders may not show fear, but that doesn't mean that they don't experience fear. But they have the courage to move through their fear, and they have the courage to not let their fear tell them what to do and how to think. You can be afraid of something. You can be afraid of finally moving out of the training zone. You're training. It's time to actually get into the arena and fight. You are a beacon for others. There are a lot more people that are motivated and inspired by you than you probably realize. Especially if you're watching this, you probably have a lot more people that are looking up to you than you realize. They may not necessarily say it, but it's true, and it's there. That's going to do it for this week's episode of Cosmic Convergence. Thank you so much for joining me on this. I trust that this message will assist you on your journey this week. I will see you guys next week on Wednesday, where we talk about that week's transits, of course. And y'all take care. Stay blessed. Have a wonderful week, beloved. I will see you guys very, very soon. Peace. Love y'all.